Welcome to Canadascourt. Well, it's March, and you know what that means. It's time for March Madness, one of the most exciting times of year for a basketball fan. And it's time to get you ready for that excitement with a little bit of March Madness chat. And there's no one I'd rather talk about it with than Coach O, Olivier Jean Charles, last season's Canada's Court bracket champion. I have your prize waiting here for you, actually. Still haven't picked it up, so I'm a little offended by that, but that's okay. It's okay. It's still here for you. Coach O, how you doing?
I'm doing well. And you know what? I'm coming for that prize again this year. So you better, let's
I
double
bel
up, you know?
I believe it. I believe it. I mean, last year, we talked about March Madness throughout the tournament, and you were pretty spot on. You were pretty spot on. I know there was some competition between you and my father, actually, for the championship at the very end, but you did pull away. Really quickly, I'll just explain to people because we are doing, as Coach O alluded to, we're doing a bracket challenge again this year. Really easy to join. I've got the link wherever you're listening to this in the description. It should be there. You just click it, go, and the password is very simple Canada's Court, all one word. Capital C in Canada, I believe. So capital C, Canada's Court. And then all you got to do, make your picks. And we'll see who can dethrone Coach O. Coach O, how you feeling this year? Have you been keeping up with everything? You feel like you know what's going on this time?
I've been keeping up. Conference tournaments have been great. We're gonna be making some educated guests this year because we have
Hmm.
been blessed to have some really, really high level basketball. And one thing that we noticed is there's a lot of parity this year, right? Parity is just we have different teams that are popping out of nowhere, injuries in certain situations, certain guys have to step up. It's the beauty of March now because now certain teams have the opportunity to put it all together.
I think you nailed it right there with the term educated guess. We are not all knowing. We don't have a crystal ball. If I did, I think I'd be doing even better in the March Madness pools than I usually do. But yeah, we're just taking some of the information we got and we're having fun with it. But I want people who are maybe they haven't done a bracket before or they're like, can I really compete with Coach O? Just give it a try. It's not you don't have to be an expert to be good at this. You just got to make some guesses, and we'll see how things go. We're going to break this chat into kind of three categories here. We're going to do a championship watch, Canadians to watch, and a Cinderella watch. Coach O, do you have any preference on where we start here? Where do you think we should go first?
Nope, I'll leave it to you. I think all three of those options are pretty good. So I'm excited to see what you have on your heart, Phil.
All right. Well, I mean, this is Canada's court. We got to start with Canada, I think. Let's talk about some of the Canadians to watch. There's some good players. You can't watch a tournament nowadays without seeing a good handful of Canadians. I think one of the Canadians I'm excited for, and it's because I often pick Gonzaga to win or at least win a couple games, is going to be Ryan Nembhard. I'm excited to see how he's going to do. Great facilitator, great passer. He's had a great college career so far. Is this the year that, Gonzaga can really make a big dent in the tournament? We'll find out. But I really like watching him. Great distributor, right? Like just a really good at setting up the court. I'm looking forward to seeing how he plays.
Ryan Nemhard, all WCC first team. He's been leading his team, and I think that's been, in a way, his appeal to people that are watching his game that are keeping up. Gonzaga this year, by Gonzaga standard, is not doing as well as they believe that they should be doing, right? Because this is normally a
Hmm.
team that just dominates and steams through their conference, right? Their conference has gotten stronger, and they are in the situation where now they have to make certain decisions on, how they're going to attack certain coverages, right? I think what he's really stepped up and done is that he's shown that he could really make high level decisions at the right time. I was watching a couple of games that were during the conference tournament, and he has a really nice synergy, I think, with the rest of his teammates, right? So I think it's been fun to just keep up and just watch because ultimately it's gonna come, in these big games, it's gonna come down to that guard play, right? So I think it's interesting to see.
I got the bracket here. I got the paper bracket because I like the feel of it in my hand. If I don't print off a bracket in a year, I kind of feel like I missed out. They're in the 8-9 game versus Georgia, so that's going to be a tight matchup. That's going to be a fun one to watch. What about you, Coach O? Is there any Canadians on your watch list this time around?
I have to go with Will Riley. William Riley, Big Ten Six Man of the Year, uh, projected to be a lottery pick. So that's also always interesting. I just think that his shooting ability and the scoring ability coming into a team like Illinois and being able to impact the game right away, I think that's been phenomenal, right? So for me, I'm definitely going to be looking at if the production continues when tournament time comes because he's a very valuable person to come, right? For the listeners, a lot of times when somebody is labeled the sixth man for a team, it's because this person comes in and provides scoring or changes the pace and the dynamic of the game when they come off the bench. So for somebody to do that as a rookie on a Power Five team is very, very valuable and very interesting. So NBA scouts are going to be taking notice, and so should we as Canadians.
So they're the sixth seed. They're playing the winner of Texas versus Xavier. That's either going on now while we're recording or tomorrow. I'm not sure. But tell me about this kind of play-in matchup, especially where we've got some better teams now. I mean, there's been the case for a while, but you've got like Xavier in Texas. They're going to come in as an 11 seed. How much do you factor in the kind of rest versus rust factor?
It's tough because I do think that you're looking at those teams like the teams that end up playing in the first four, for instance, right? They get a taste of what kind of competition they could play earlier than other teams. So in a way, if you play your cards right, you could catch other teams by surprise. I always tell people like the first playoff game is always going to be the hardest, right? So you could imagine that going into this, if you are maybe someone that is matched up against somebody who's been in the first four, that already got their game and that went through, felt the pressure, and now is adjusted in a way, right? Even though they are in a way lower ranked, they could catch you by surprise at any time. Uh, but I do think that now I don't think the rankings now are indicative of how good the teams are. There's some really interesting teams at that 11, 12, and 13 this year. It's not as black or white as
Hmm.
it was in the past because now there's way more college players. There's way more better college players. The NCAA is trending older, so there's way more opportunity. So I don't think anybody has to be taken for lightly. You still got to go in and play these games, especially when you don't have um, the luxury of having the high end talent that some of the Power Fives may have.
Okay, I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but this is what we do on this podcast. We get to discussions and we go on a bit of a tangent. So I want to know from your coaching perspective, if you're one of these kind of top teams, and maybe you're even in the same situation that Illinois is, where you haven't played a game yet, and the other team's coming in just off of a win. How do you kind of mentally? Obviously, these teams are super well coached, the top to bottom. How do you prepare a team to kind of be ready so they're not taken by surprise in that very first game?
That's a very good question because I think there are a lot more factors than what people actually think, right? So in Illinois' case, you're going to be playing against somebody that, earned their spot. So this is a team that can come out and surprise you because they have faced the the pressure of going home early. So in a way, when you're playing that game, you feel like you're playing with found money. So you don't really have that much restriction on what you play. A lot of those teams, what you'll see is that they'll play more loose. They'll play with nothing to lose instead of playing to not lose, like what those higher seeds may do. And that makes a big factor. But I think in this tournament, something else that we have to look out for, and maybe this is something that could help uh, our bracket doers, right, for this year. Location, I think, is very interesting because if you're looking at the Memphis, Colorado State, if you're looking at that matchup, the Memphis, Colorado State in the West region, And then you're looking at the Maryland versus Grand Canyon matchup right under that, right? The winners of both of those games are going to play against each other. But there is also the possibility of it being in the West region. There's longer distance that Memphis and Maryland have to travel. So they actually, in a way, can potentially be put at a disadvantage when you're playing against maybe a potential lower seed. So the one thing that I really focused on and paid attention to, basketball wise, especially me coaching at the high school level, is that everything matters. So when you're looking at having an extended away game where you travel, you maybe don't have the specific routine that you have, and you're looking at Maryland, right? Their best player is a rookie, Derek Queen. He's young, so the inexperience of the rookie potentially can come in and play a factor because he's so valuable to that team that he has to get it together, right? So if Derek Queen doesn't come out and play the way that they have to, Grand Canyon might be able to pull out the upset. So I've learned over time that everything really matters. So you really got to pay attention to all those factors. So little tip for our people that are going to fill out their brackets tonight or tomorrow, pay attention to the region because there's a lot of those that are going on. I mentioned to you this one at the beginning, right? Where, people, Auburn, if you're Auburn in the South region, you're looking at this and you're like, yeah, we're the number one. But if we win and Louisville wins, we might play Louisville in Lexington. So that
Yeah.
ends up being almost like a home game for Louisville. So, I mean, everything matters. And that's the beauty of this tournament. So,
Oh man, coach, now it's going to take me way longer to fill out this bracket. I got to look at like flight times and distance travel. Man, this is going to be tough. This is why you're the champ, I guess. This is why you're the champ. I got one more Canadian to watch on my end here. Silas Swords on the women's side is definitely someone. I mean, we've been talking about her for a while now on this podcast with the national team and whatnot, but averaging 16.1 points per game and 6 rebounds a game as a freshman. Uh, she's exciting to watch. She's fun to watch. She's had some huge games for Michigan this year. Um, she's definitely got to be someone to watch if you're watching the women's tournament for sure.
she's making us look really good right now, Phil, because
Yeah,
we were talking about how impressive it was for us to see her, compete on the senior women's national team this summer, right?
mhm.
So just for her to be able to continue on that and have an impact directly with her team, it's a testament to how how connected she can be, like even as a rookie, but also the experience of playing with older players. Like she maybe comes in and not as shy as another rookie would, just wanting to really come in and establish herself. So that's been really fun to watch. I think she has a chance. She has a chance to really do something special for her.
You make a really good point there in the fact that she has that national team experience with some older players. Most of the women in college basketball, they're not going to have that same chance because the U.S. women's team is so stacked. They don't have too many college freshmen playing for their team. They're so good. So she really does have a very unique kind of advantage compared to some of her fellow freshmen there. So that's going to be fun to watch. Is there anybody else? Any other Canadians on your list as we get ready for the madness?
I think I'm just gonna talk general. I think we've been, especially on the women's side. I got to give a
Mm,
shout out to the women's side because I think we've had the opportunity to really witness some really incredible performances. Uh, and I'm thinking about Toby Fournier over at Duke. You're gonna get a chance to see her in the tournament. Delaney Gibb, I think, has been really, really good carrying the load in certain situations, playing for BYU. So that's been very interesting just to keep up and just see. So for me, it's nice that we get this opportunity to have the men and the women's side really step up and really shine, especially for us Canadians, for sure.
yeah. It's going to be a fun time. One more name I'm going to mention. We're not going to see him play. Olivier Rio, from Quebec, 7'9". We've talked about him a little bit on the podcast. He's not in the rotation for Florida, but he is on the roster for a number one seed. So that's just if you're just rooting for Canadian's sake, there's a chance that you got someone who's cutting down the nets. And everyone I'm sure saw the video of him cutting down the nets for the conference tournament without needing a ladder. That's kind of useful, actually. I mean, I don't really wish I was 7'9", but that's got some advantages.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely an interesting prospect. Just the height alone. I mean, like 7'9". Is it 7'9"? No.
Yep, that's what I saw. That's what I saw, but I could be wrong. I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
measure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no. I think, especially at that kind of side, like you definitely are rooting for him. Like it's a very unique kind of advantage that you could have basketball wise. Being able to be vertical without jumping, I think, is something that's very interesting. So, for me, that'll be an interesting one because I am scrolling down just to see right here, right? So Florida being number one in the West region. Maybe he does get it. Maybe I don't know. Maybe there's an opportunity. I don't know if they're redshirting him or if he's on the roster but just hasn't gotten into the game. But I mean, maybe he ends up playing against Norfolk State a 1 versus a 16, right? So I don't know what that specific situation is. So that could be interesting as
Yeah,
well.
I didn't look that up at the beginning either. I feel like because he hasn't played a single game, he must be redshirting, but I don't know that
Redshirting.
for a fact. So
Yeah.
don't nobody get mad at me. But it would be like you never know. I mean, if he wasn't redshirting in a March Madness tournament, you never know what happens, right? What you need in a specific situation. But
hmm
yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath for some minutes from him there. But still, if a Canadian can win a national championship, we're rooting for that too. Let's speaking of, let's talk about some of the winners. I see on ESPN 25% of people are picking Duke to win it all. Uh, Coach O, how do you feel about that? Does that seem to line up? I mean, I think people pick Duke whether they're a favorite or not. They're going to be a favorite pick, but well, how do you feel about that 25% there for Duke?
I think it's understandable. Duke showing their depth and versatility, being able to win the conference tournament, without Cooper Flag, because remember Cooper Flag got hurt in the semifinals game. He had an ankle injury. I don't think we should be expecting him to play in the first game. Maybe he'll play a little bit just to be for him to get his legs under him, but expect probably Duke to move on from the first round and have him go in the second. But it's very understandable because the way Duke is playing right now on both ends of the floor, um, the in my opinion, like right now, the most talented two-way team in the country right now, just with size, skill, defense, offense. They just really dominate on both sides of the ball, and they create like those large margins. Um, One, by getting their deflection on the defensive end, but two, being able to have size inside and being able to get second chance opportunities. So that's always interesting to see. So I think Duke is interesting. So I understand why 25% of people have chosen Duke to win.
We had my family group chat. We were all kind of arguing on who got to pick Duke to win, and so I think there's going to be when I look at the family brackets, there's going to be a few Dukes there, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Who else are you liking for a potential champion this time around?
I think obviously Auburn. In my opinion, I think Auburn has been um, in certain situations. We could consider Auburn has been one of the better teams in the country all year. Um, I kind of like Texas Tech. That's a sneaky one. I kind of
Texas
like
Tech.
I
Oh,
kind of like Texas Tech because obviously there's Florida being at number one, but I do think that Texas Tech has the ability, if they win a couple of games, for them to be able to, um, you know, get to the region final and being able to take down a team like Florida. So I like Tech. Um, and who else? Let me give you one more. Let me give you
give me
one
one
more.
more. I
Let me give you
I'm
one
far
more.
from an expert, so
Um,
I'm really relying on you. This is a
yeah,
Coach
yeah,
O
yeah,
ISO podcast almost here. I'm
yeah,
passing you the ball.
yeah. I'm hoping that Houston has been really good for a lot of years. I'm hoping that they could, in a way, put it together to be able to make a deep run. Because the way that Houston plays defense, it favors the kind of basketball that you're going to see in March Madness, right? Low possession, they grind it out every possession, and they create second chance opportunities with their aggression to crash the offensive board and their ability to finish at the rim. So I think that won't be interesting. I think the guard play has always been the main, I would say, Achilles heel for Houston, because you were never sure on whether or not the guards could withstand being able to make the right decisions, because it's really about the reads. You never really understood or made sure, like, okay, the guards are going to be on point all the time. So for me, like, that would be a team that I'll definitely be interested to watch, because Houston is ranked number one in the Midwest, and rightfully so. Easily a top 4 team in the country.
All right, that one's gonna be interesting. I feel bad for, I don't know if feel bad's the right word, but I know a little bit of insider baseball here for the Canadascourt fans. I know we've mentioned my father a time or two here, and he always picks Houston, and he always picks Michigan State. So if I had to guess, he's going to pick those two to go far, which means if we're talking about how he historically does, Houston's probably losing in the first round, and Michigan State's probably losing in the first round. That's just how his brackets tend to go. That is, I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying that's been my experience with my poor father's bracket. He's not doesn't usually go well for him. So, Dad, if you're listening, I hope they don't go that way for you, but I'm concerned. Speaking of upsets, I'm not actually predicting those two as upsets, but we said we were going to do a bit of a Cinderella watch. Teams that and Cinderella is a bit of a loose term here. It can mean a lot of different things. I think in my mind, it's a team that kind of can capture your imagination and capture the hearts during the March Madness tournament. Maybe a team you didn't expect to do well, or a team that kind of came out of nowhere or has a good story. Coach O, who are you picking for your personal Cinderella in the 2025 March Madness tournament?
I think for me, I may go. I mentioned 2 of them, so Colorado State and Grand Canyon. I think those would be very interesting to watch. I do think we have the potential of having a 13 versus a 12 in that second round.
Wow.
I think that's what I'm going to be looking at. I think Grand Canyon. I think Grand Canyon has enough. I think they'll, in a way, I think they'll get the better of Maryland. That's what I think. So, but aside from that, I think probably this is tough. This is tough. This is
I mean,
tough.
again, let's put the disclaimer out to the people. We're not saying this is for sure. These things are difficult to predict. Um, but we're just having some fun on a podcast here. So
Yeah,
if we're
let's go.
wrong, don't sue us. But
Let's go VCU.
VCU,
Let's go VCU. Let's go VCU.
okay, okay, VCU.
I think that BYU matchup is tricky, but I think VCU has they have a lot of players that I think will be able to step up to the plate. But I do think it's a team that could potentially win 2 games of this tournament.
Okay. You mentioned earlier how it's important to look at all the factors. One of the factors that I consider somewhat important is having your good players play, and that's going to be a bit of a challenge for Iowa State this year. If you might remember last year, Keyshawn Gilbert was kind of the star for them as when they were in the Sweet 16, but he's out for this game. And they're
Mm.
playing Lipscomb. Lipscomb shoots a bunch of threes, and they can hit a bunch of threes. And those are the kind of teams where if they get hot and you're not ready for it, you're in some trouble. So that's my one Cinderella. I'll be honest. The first time I looked at the bracket, I didn't even know if that was a real place. Sorry for anyone listening who's a big Lipscomb fan, but I do think that That's a possibility in my opinion. But that is really the formula, right? If you have a team that can get hot, those are kind of the teams that shoot a lot of threes. Those are the ones that are primed to make a potential upset.
Especially the ones that, like, we talked about mentality, right? Just being able to go into it with like nothing to lose and let's just play, leave it all out on the floor. It's always a dangerous time um, for other teams, right? Especially with college basketball being with two halves, two 20s. Um, you don't have the luxury of every quarter being able to reset and whatnot. It's really just you start playing that game in increments, right? So you start playing the game every 4 minutes and just being able to compete every 4 minutes, it ends up creating the big picture. So I agree with you, man. Like, especially with the way the three ball is going right now, like you make a couple, and you're down quick. You know what I mean? So I agree with you.
Now, Coach Joe, I got to ask about you personally. When this weekend rolls around, and I think this is personally my favorite weekend of the tournament. Like it's the one where you constantly have games on. If there's a game that you're a little bored of, you can switch to the next one. It's when you have the biggest upsets. What is the typical, the first Thursday, Friday of March Madness look for you? Are you glued to the TV, or is how do you watch most of the games? Do you get mostly in?
I try as much as possible, yeah, because like I think um, I like I like being able to witness, something that these college athletes have been working for a long time, right? So, for me to be able to see, and you never know who can come out on top, and seeing the upset, especially in the first round, I think it's always fun, right? So, um, no, I try to watch as much games as possible. And for me as a basketball fan, I think the most fun part about this tournament is the fact that you're gonna get to a point where there's going to be games that are probably going to start like around 9 p.m.
Hmm.
So 9:45, 9:45, 9:45 on 9:45 on Thursday. I am going to watch this St. John's game. I think St. John's is
Ooh.
very interesting. I think what Rick Pitino has done in 2 years is not being talked about enough. It's not being talked about enough because what they're doing is they're allowing themselves to just be in the conversation. He's taking minimal. He's creating like these margins, these minimal margins, which is really like making me think of Joe Mazzulla for the Boston Celtics. They
Mm.
value boxing out very like at a high level. They value crashing glass, transition defense, defending without fouling, not giving up free throws. That plays a big part in this tournament because not giving easy baskets, and the referees are not going to call the game as tight in a way, especially if you make a conscious effort to not foul. That could be very different, very difficult for some teams. So St. John's, I like. I actually, St. John's versus Tech, I think will be like one of the better games looking forward.
One of the things I really love about it, and I love the NBA. I watch a lot of NBA too. But the thing about March Madness is you have so much emotion is tied into these games. That just doesn't translate the same to the NBA because in the NBA when you lose, there's next season, right? When you lose in the playoffs, there's next season, and if you're down 3-2 in a series, well then you kind of knew there was a chance you were going home. But in March Madness, not only is this the kind of pinnacle for a lot of these players, right? This is some may go to play in the NBA, some may go to play overseas, but for 95% of the players or more, it's the end. And so these games are really it for some of the seniors who might be done, and it just happens in a moment, right? Like in the NBA, you can kind of see your season coming to an end. In this, it could be, you're the number one seed, and then you just get cold, and then boom, you're knocked out. So I think that kind of drama, which people who watch sports. We love drama, it's a drama filled kind of thing, whether you get it from a reality TV show or you get it from a basketball game, it's drama, and I that's one of the things I love about it, and I think you never know where it's going to come from. We make our educated guesses, um, but it could come from nowhere, and it's a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. I feel a lot better now, though, about my bracket because It's actually quite empty now, but now I'm going to listen back to this podcast and kind of do my equations here, and I think I might be able to compete with you this time. You may have given away too many of your secrets. We'll see.
Bring it on, bring it on.
I will say, just for the people who are watching, just as a reminder again, how to sign up for the bracket challenge. Go to ESPN.com. Actually, we'll go to wherever you're watching this, whether it's on podcast or on video. The link will be there. You click the link, you type in the password, all one word, Canadascourt with a capital C, and then you make your picks. Whether you listen to us or not is up to you. However, make your picks is up to you. But it's going to be a lot of fun. I really look forward to it. I love checking to see how I'm doing. One final question for you, because I make a lot of different brackets. I think I'm in 4 or 5 different pools. Do you usually make just one bracket, or are you in a couple different groups?
I think a couple. I like making a couple, just be able to see, because I think like once you make your first bracket, you take a step back, you listen to maybe some you listen to some commentators, some reporters, and then you just have a fresh idea. So you just want to make another one, and you know. I know a lot of people. When I was back in college, a lot of people would do this. They would make like an upset bracket where they would just
Hmm.
have like everybody mix the every all most of the games were like upsets. So those are always
Yeah.
fun, and just being able to see people's perspective. So because it's the beauty of the tournament, you never know what could happen.
Do you find as you make more like when I make more brackets, the further I get along, the more upsets show up. Like my first one is
Yeah,
usually
yeah,
maybe a little bit more safe, but by the
yeah,
time I get to a fourth bracket, it's
yeah,
looking a little
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I know the feeling. I think it's just because you get a bit more comfortable with the reality that could happen
Mm.
in this tournament, right? It's probably going to be. Um, I don't think anybody has had a perfect bracket up until now. So,
No.
so yeah,
My other problem is I keep, every year I say to myself, well, maybe Phil, this time, you're in 4 different pools. Pick 4 different winners. Increase your chances of winning. But then I always think, you know what? But I'm sure Gonzaga is going to win. So why would I pick anyone else? And then I pick the same team for all brackets and I lose.
yeah.
But this year I'm feeling okay. I think we're going to do it. But Coach O, it as always was great to have you back on the podcast. We'll talk more as soon as the tournament goes on.
Appreciate you, Phil. It's always a pleasure to be on Canada's Court.